Oh, if there are any white people who have experience in security and could maybe talk to this gentleman, it really isn't the job of the black people to handle this situation.
Ladies and gentlemen, and yes, I just assumed your genders, cancel your Netflix and cancel your cable, and get that Visine ready, because the wise and benevolent beard man in charge of the eternal laughing universe has seen fit to provide us with the greatest reality TV show since 14 billion years ago, when a couple of horny ions first looked at each other with a glint in their eyes and said, "Want a bone?" Welcome to CHAZ, the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, located in the thriving and/or burning heart of Seattle, Washington. In this West Coast utopia, all 72 genders and 297 mental illnesses have come together under the banner of to embrace personal responsibility and forge the ballionist imperial colony on Native American soil since Democrat Andrew Jackson held the first inaugural Sioux Saline 10K. Boasting an impressive 6 blocks of real estate still tapped into the taxpayer-funded electrical and water grids, but no one think too hard about that, CHAZ represents an organic groundswell of independent spirit and crippling disorders from the DSM-5. The nascency of the new nation, and by that I mean the first 6 hours of Antifa stand, was guided by their impressive and quasi-rapey leader, Laura Kauk, a straight white male lesbian anarchist begging capitalists to help build his civilization so he can abolish whiteness, capitalism, and civilization. But John, you say, I don't get it. Literally every single term in this thing's profile is the exact opposite of what he's doing, to which I do in fact happen to have an excellent rebuttal. You're right! Quote, according to at least 2 exes and 1 current partner, the leader of the Autonomous Zone has repeatedly abused the women that they've been with. One user wrote, "I'm her ex. Even if she isn't doing it consciously, she has done things like this on multiple occasions, including assaulting people and, despite acknowledging she's in the wrong, has refused treatment. She has threatened suicide numerous times. She's not being gaslit." Another user explained that just recently, Laura Kauk has physically and sexually assaulted them. "You punched me in the fucking face a few days before you shoved me off the bed for making a shit joke. I constantly push your hands away and tell you to stop touching my chest. One time I told you to stop and you cried and got all depressive." As the accusations mounted throughout the day, late in the evening, Laura Kauk finally admitted their guilt and in an alarming post offered their final goodbyes before claiming they intended to take their own life. "I'm a serial abuser and I don't really believe anyone can get better from a situation like that. I'm going to peacefully end my life so I won't hurt anyone else." So, just a few short hours after planting their flag on Iwo Jima, the queen thing of the place with no leader abdicated the throne of non-monarchy so the not government could undergo peaceful violent regime change. Next to seize power was a one Raz Simone, a failed rapper and successful warlord who was quickly dubbed the Black George Zimmerman. With Simone and crew packing heavy weaponry compared to the chasturbatory arsenal of hand shovels and dildos, it wasn't long before he minted the cop-free zone's first police force and probably started stealing people's phones.
You forgot, we are the police of this community now. We are the leaders of this community now. No, bro. Go then. Stop, bro. Go then, bro. Stop. Hey, I'm not trying to aid. Get your hands off me, bro. Hey, yo, hey, hey, bro. Hey, you gonna buck up on her, nigga? Chill. You gonna buck up on her? Chill. Yeah, push her again, bro. Who the fuck you pushing me? He's not trying to do it.
After 48 hours of harmonious, yes that's sarcasm, existence, the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, which had been forcibly confiscated to protest forced confiscation, had also erected walls in protest of erecting walls, formed a brutal police force in protest of police brutality, and developed a de facto caste system in protest of social hierarchy. There was a brief glimmer of hope when a gaggle of potheads dumped topsoil on sheets of cardboard and called it a garden, albeit for blacks only, and their plant allies, holy shit. But this was quickly taken over and claimed as a zone autonomous zone by a homeless rake ninja. Facing critical shortages despite stealing city power, water, and porta potties, and with their garden that was definitely going to work now under the control of Sauron, the autonomous zone began begging for supplies from their bigoted capitalist neighbors. They amassed a small donated food stockpile before it was stolen because property, am I right? And Raz Simone's police force was unable to prevent the theft because they were too busy committing it.
A Domino's is coming to deliver pizza to here. They already delivered like 10 boxes. So that's straight up. They're coming in to hook up with the pizza. You can't make that stuff up.
Autonomy. There was also a fun moment when they attempted to detain one of their own members while stealing his phone. Apparently phones are CHAZ's national currency or something, and straight up George Floyd kneeled on the man's back in protest of the death of George Floyd, only dispersing when they realized they were being filmed.
I am a free citizen! But also the autonomous zone can choose to reject. I am a free citizen in the autonomous zone!
Not mentioned on mainstream propaganda. Oops, I mean news. Just kidding. I meant propaganda. And despite the Seattle mayor declaring CHAZ home of the Summer of Love, the undermined Seattle police chief, a black woman, says violent crimes in the zone have almost tripled and the police aren't allowed in to stop women from being raped.
Our 911 response times have tripled in the area. They've gone from just over 5 minutes to about 18 minutes. Rapes, robberies, and all sorts of violent acts that have been occurring in the area that we're not able to get to.
Smells like love to me.
Give me my phone! Give me my phone! Give me my phone! What did you do? We know that. That's been going on today, yeah. What happened? Drones and all that shit. What?
By the time you leave this autonomous zone, I want you to give $10 to one African American person from this autonomous zone. And if you find that's difficult, if you find it's hard for you to give $10 to people of color, to black people especially, you have to think really critically about, in the future, are you going to actually give up power and land and capital when you have it? If you have a hard time giving up $10, you got to think about, are you really down with this struggle?
So, in summary, to protest sexual assault, police, racism, sexism, government, capitalism, border walls, nationalism, and hate speech, the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone was founded by a serial sexual assaulter, formed a police force, enacted racist policies, abused women, formed a government, bought goods and services, surrounded themselves with walls and declared themselves a nation, and told everyone to go f*** themselves because they're worthless and don't matter.
On the 12th consecutive night of protests in Seattle, hundreds of people stormed City Hall and demanded the resignation of Mayor Jenny Durkan. The protesters were reportedly allowed access to the building by a Seattle City Council member. Authorities in Seattle have been sharply criticized for their handling of the Black Lives Matter demonstrations. As in many other US cities, some people are now calling for the city police department to be defunded. Protests have been held every day here since video was released showing the killing of George Floyd. But tensions reached boiling point over the weekend. Capitol Hill resembled a battlefield as police deployed tear gas to disperse crowds, just one day after the mayor announced a 30-day ban on its use.
They're pushing us into the flashbangs.
On Sunday evening, a man sped his car into demonstrators, shooting one of them in the arm as he came to a stop. He then got out and brandished his gun at those around him before handing himself in to police. But now, law enforcement have retreated from Capitol Hill in what they've described as an exercise in trust and de-escalation.
There was still the operational threat or potential threat to the precinct itself, which included intelligence that there might be a threat of fire. There was an assessment made together with Chief Scoggins and the command staff as to what the impacts would be, not just on the precinct, but on the wood frame buildings around that had as many as 500 residents. It was determined that if that was the threat, that maintaining people inside the building would be dangerous.
Protesters have established a barricaded autonomous zone around the local police precinct, which appears to have been evacuated. Seattle's mayor has so far resisted calls for her to stand down, but the pressure is growing.
This morning, hundreds of people in Seattle occupying a now abandoned police precinct.
What do we want? When do we want it?
The takeover coming after the Seattle Police Department abruptly surrendered the building after weeks of clashing with protesters. Now boarded up and abandoned, the building is renamed the Seattle People Department, and the 6 blocks surrounding it have been dubbed Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone.
The people recognize that this building is the people's. You know, we pay for it with our taxes.
Surrounded by barricades, police aren't allowed, while demonstrators hold meetings, set up clinics, and offer free food.
Leaving the precinct was not my decision.
The police chief last night condemned the order from the city that forced her officers to retreat.
It seems like an insult to you and our community. Ultimately, the city had other plans for the building and relented to severe public pressure.
The Seattle PD has been under fire for its tactics in recent weeks, using flashbangs and pepper spray on crowds. This girl crying in pain. 14,000 complaints filed against police. But the chief now says due to the takeover, officers can no longer respond to all calls for violent crimes in the neighborhood.
We have heard that there are armed people patrolling the streets near 12th and Pine.
President Trump dubbing the group domestic terrorists, despite the gathering being largely peaceful. He called on the governor and mayor to take back your city now. If you don't do it, I will. Seattle's mayor firing back on Twitter, writing, "Make us all safe. Go back to your bunker."
It is unconstitutional and illegal to send military to Seattle.
And slamming the president's threat to move in on the city.
One of the things this president will never understand is that listening to community is not a weakness. It is a strength.
But the mayor taking criticism herself from some Black Lives Matter protesters, saying she's allowing this to distract from the overall cause.
I'm ashamed of my city right now. I'm ashamed of the mayor.
Ashamed of
Shame on her.
I don't know how Capitol Hill became the center focus of this. Capitol Hill is not the black community. The black community is 6 blocks up the street and to the left.
Those at the autonomous zone have a list of demands, including removing officers from schools, getting rid of juvenile jails, and even abolishing the city's police department altogether.
Megan, thank you.
Unbelievably, this is why it matters about who you elect to local government, state government, and how much power the crazies get. There is a socialist councillor on the city of Capitol Hill in Seattle, which is part of Washington, which is right up in the northeast. And right now there is an occupation where what started as a protest has become taking over police stations. This councillor wants more police stations to be stormed by normal people, not just to defund, but to take them over. This stuff is an occupation.
And there's been reports of frisking people as they go in. So the Seattle police, and there are no city officials anywhere near there, so they have completely ceded this area to the protesters.
The perimeter stretches from here at 13th Avenue, goes past 11th Avenue, and it goes from Olive to Pike. The protesters we talked with here today say at this point they don't have any plans to leave.
If you want to call it anything, it's the people's community.
That's what this protester says, but today police say they're concerned about safety and their goal is to reopen the East Precinct. According to Assistant Chief Deanna Nolet, they've seen checkpoints where people are armed, and she says, quote, "We've heard of people ask for ID and that a business was told they needed to make a donation to be in the area." Rook, who has been staying here, says he has not seen that.
It's not nothing aggressive or violent or nothing like that. We didn't come out here for any of that.
He says the community is welcome, and while there's no one leader here, there is a unified message.
That's what those faces on the walls, Black lives killed by the police. We want people to see that those lives matter.
That's posted on the side of the East Precinct, and above, the sign now says Seattle People Department. Some are calling it Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone. When asked what it'll take to get protesters to clear the streets, Rook's answer was vague.
We're hoping to see a better, if not system society altogether.
The blocked off area is an obstacle for the fire department.
How would we get a person from a medical call out of here?
That's why Fire Chief Harold Scoggins is here, making sure there's a way to bring help in if it's needed. The barricades have become an urgent issue for Seattle city leaders, including Councilmember Andrew Lewis.
I oversee, the mayor and the police department. I'm certainly going to be having conversations with them as this process unfolds.
Meanwhile, the governor said he wasn't aware of this so-called autonomous zone on Capitol Hill, where protesters have set up those barricades and have claimed the area, as you saw there, as their own. The governor was asked today if the National Guard would be asked to intervene.
That's a hypothetical. Look, we've got to have safety. I'm sure that people will find a way to have public safety everywhere in the state. I'm confident of that. The National Guard is demobilizing. Over 2/3 of them were demobilized of yesterday. I don't know if they're completely demobilized at this point or not, but if not, that'll be shortly, I believe.
If the National Guard were to intervene, that request would need to come from the city of Seattle.
One of the most amusing narratives to come out of the protests in the last couple of days has been the creation of the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone in Seattle, Washington. Now, this is a 6-block area that Antifa and Black Lives Matter protesters have basically claimed as their own. They're not just, this is beyond Occupy Wall Street. They actually are saying that this is an autonomous area that is no longer subject to U.S. law or Washington state law or Seattle statutes. They're claiming this as their own country. So that's created a lot of really interesting philosophical discussions. Are these people terrorists? Are these people enemy combatants? It's an interesting thought experiment because we haven't had to really experience this since the Civil War. We haven't had someone actually try and declare independence like this.
A cop-free co-op with food and supplies. Signs in Capitol Hill declare this area an autonomous zone.
I think it means a lot of things. An anti-racist zone. Everything in the autonomous zone is free right now. It's free right now.
You said last week on Seattle that if the mayor of Seattle, the governor of Washington, didn't take steps to end the occupation of the Capitol Hill neighborhood, you would step in and you would do something. 100%. They still haven't ended it. They're negotiating. Are you considering taking action?
They're negotiating garbage removal. These people have taken over a vast part, a major part, a very good part of a place called Seattle. Seattle's big stuff. That's a major city. And we have a governor who's a stiff, and we have a mayor who said, oh, this is going to be a love fest. And by the way, these are violent people that took it over. These are not people that are nice people. I saw on your network today, John. I saw what went on with the hitting and the punching and the beating and all the other things going on in Seattle. And you have a governor that doesn't do a damn thing about it. And you have a mayor that doesn't know she's alive. She's talking about it's going to be a love fest this summer. Now, if they don't do the job, I'll do the job. And I've already spoken to the Attorney General about it. But if they don't do the job, we will do the job.
What can you do?
About 10 different things, any one of which will solve the problem quickly.
Can we go through a whole list or a partial list?
We don't have to go through any list. We can do a lot of things.
Mr. President.
I think it's incredible also that the radical left press doesn't cover it. They're acting like nothing happened. You turn on the news, you look at the news, you don't even see stories about it. If the right ever took over a city, conservative Republicans took over a city, it would be the biggest story in history. You can't even find stories about Seattle. It's incredible.
How much longer?
They've taken over. We'll see. I tell you what, the American public is very angered by that. Seattle is a major, important city, and the Democrats, I guess you say radical left, but it's not even radical left. It's just Democrat. Where we have our problem are Democrat-run cities. If you look at Minneapolis, if you look at other cities that have had trouble, they're Democrat in virtually every case that I can think of. I can't think of one other case. These are Democrat-run cities. Minneapolis, where the police are told to run for your lives. Don't do anything. And if I didn't get involved and send in the National Guard, and it was at my insistence that they did that, and as soon as I did that, everything stopped in Minneapolis 4 days, 5 days later.
Is there a timeline that you're thinking here, Seattle?
There's no timeline. We're watching it very closely. These are violent people that are dealing violently, and I think what I'd like to see before we do something, I'd like to see the press get in and cover it, because it's not that they're covering it badly, they're hardly covering it all. Think of this. A group, Antifa and others, radical lefts, they went into a major U.S. city, Seattle, and they took over a big percentage of that city, and the press doesn't want to cover it. And we have a mayor who's scared stiff. She doesn't know what's happening. We have a governor that's one of the most overrated politicians in the country. He just ran for president. He got less than 1%. He actually probably, I would have said less than 0, but I'm not sure that's possible. He got nothing. He got no votes, nothing. The whole thing, the guy was out there fighting. At the end, he got 0, right? 0. So he failed. And now he goes back and they take over a city and he doesn't say anything about it. Worse, he said he didn't hear it. A day later, he said, I didn't hear anything about it. They took over a city, Seattle, and he said, I didn't hear anything about it. So look, the governor has to call out the troops, do what he has to do, has to call out the National Guard, has to do something. Because, you know, the problem with what happened in Seattle is it spreads. And all of a sudden they'll say, let's do some other city and let's do another one. And we're not going to let it happen. So timing-wise, hey, we're all set to go. We're watching the process. But the most amazing thing about the process is how the fake news media doesn't want to cover it. To me, that's the most amazing thing. Thank you all very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
The mayor of Seattle rushed to defend protesters in her city's so-called autonomous zone after President Trump threatened to take over that 6-block area. Activists there have taken over an area surrounding a police precinct. Their message is straightforward, that police should stay away.
If they don't straighten that situation out, we're going to straighten it out.
And what do you mean by that?
What I mean is very simple. We're not going to let Seattle be occupied by anarchists. Oh, it's pathetic. No, we're not going to let this happen in Seattle. If we have to go in, we're going to go in.
NBC's Vaughn Hilliard is in Seattle this morning. Vaughn, I lived in that city for a long time. The president says he's not going to allow Seattle to be occupied by anarchists. You've been through the area. Walk us through what you're seeing there. Is it anarchists who are now running the show?
The president saying that it may come down to him to step in and bring in troops to take back over this zone. We should note it was the mayor and the police chief who pulled back police. There had been more than a week of protests that had escalated in violence with flashbang grenades and pepper spray and tear gas being used. And that's when the city decided on Monday to pull back. And that's essentially when this autonomous zone was created. We should also note, though, that the police chief yesterday said the call time response has increased by 3 times because that precinct, that East Precinct for the police department remains vacant at this time.
All eyes are on Seattle, and Trump sees an opportunity to make everything that's happening there and really everywhere about his political opponents and their radical ranks. His move calls to dominate the people on the streets, dangling troops again. Wonder what effect that will have on people who say they are tired of being dominated.
We have to dominate the streets. You can't let that happen, what happened in New York City, the damage they've done. You have to dominate the street. If you think about it, we're dominating the street with compassion because we're saving lives.
Dominating the street with compassion. If that doesn't tell you everything that Trump doesn't know, I don't know what will. That is because he is singing a different tune. It's more like a dog whistle, right? To his base. And too many of them want to see the people who are begging for change put down. The governor of Washington, however, is pushing back, saying his state won't allow threats of military violence from the White House. The mayor of Seattle calls it a threat to invade and is calling on Trump to go back to his bunker.
But the description the president has given is not only wrong, but if it were right, his remedy is wrong. You don't dominate. Remember why we're here. You know, we're here because the nation saw Mr. Floyd murdered, and that lit a match across this country. And we have to acknowledge and know that we have a system that is built on systemic racism, and we have to dismantle that system piece by piece. We have to empower the Black community and communities of color, and we have to invest in their health and their safety and their education and opportunity.
Mayor, the other counter by the president and many people on the right will be, well, of course Durkin has a D after her name. She's going to be okay with this because these are her people. These are these left-wing anarchists and radicals, and they're letting them run free on the streets. You barely see any Black or African-American faces on those streets. This is about lefty radicalism run amok in your city, and you seem okay with it.
So, Chris, as you know, I was the United States Attorney here in Seattle, and during that time as United States Attorney, we investigated and prosecuted a whole range of bad actors, including militia groups and drug cartels, anarchists and the like. We have our public safety approach in one way. And during this time, a number one priority every American city has is to protect the First Amendment right.
Fall back. Reflect. What happened, Mr. Mayor? Fake. What happened, sir? Fake. What happened, sir? Fake. This is your $130 arrest. Fake. $300 a day. $300 a day. Your money. Your money. $300 a day, man. $300 a week, I make all that slack. Yeah. I'm coming Friday, like tomorrow. You want your money. Yeah.
All right, that clip you just saw was the New York City subway thief thanking Democrats after his 139th arrest. Bail reform, it's lit.
Our country was born at a protest. The right to gather, the right to protest, the right to challenge government when it's wrong is our most fundamental constitutional right. It's a reason it's the First Amendment. And as a mayor of this city, I will do everything to protect that right and balance the public safety. I think not only can we do both, I think we have to do both.
And what is the response to the president's call to dominate with compassion? He says solving your problem would be easy if you were strong and not weak. Your response was, you want to help? Go back to the bunker.
Look, we know the last time I spoke with you, we were talking about the pandemic. And I would yearn for just one positive thing the White House would give us, either on that public crisis or the public crisis we're facing right now on systemic racism. We need a president engaged to bring America together, to heal, and in the case of coronavirus, to literally heal.
Now, for a long time, I've been banging on about the only way I can envisage revolution is decentralization and fully autonomous syndicates acting in confederacy with one another. Let's see what's going on here in Seattle, because I'm intrigued to know if this can actually work. Is this potentially real revolution?
Tonight with a live look from Capitol Hill, where protesters have created a so-called autonomous zone just days after Seattle police boarded up and abandoned the East Precinct.
I suppose there's a bit of an assumption that it's temporary, but you could argue that, you know, where's Mesopotamia now? All countries are temporary. Where's Byzantium? Is that what it was called? Countries are temporary. Countries are constructs. An ancient country like England, constructed. Let's see what Tucker Carlson says about it.
Honestly, what's the option right now? Keep your sense of humor. That's what they tell you when things get really dark, and it's good advice. Humor brings perspective. All of us could use some perspective right now. So with that in mind, we want to begin tonight with a geography quiz. Here it is. How many countries are there on Earth? Last week, there were a total of 195, but if you guessed that, you're wrong, because tonight, there are 196. Ladies and gentlemen, say hello to the latest addition to the global family of nations, the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, formerly known as downtown Seattle.
City Hall! City Hall! Hell yeah. The point is, in the end, this is our street, it's our station. Whose street? Our street! Whose street? Our street!
Well, that looks pretty appealing, but before you jump on Expedia to book a trip with the family to the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, now known, by the way, as CHAZ, the country's Tourism and Economic Development Department is calling it that, you should know that there are no beaches in CHAZ. This is a tiny nation. It's smaller than Liechtenstein. The entire country extends only 6 city blocks. It was built on land that was formerly owned in part by the Seattle Police Department. The first thing they did after they declared nationhood, and this was a bit of a surprise given that these modern conquistadors claim to be progressive ideologues, but the first thing they did was establish rigid national borders. They built a wall around the place, just like Donald Trump once said he would do. Their wall is made from wooden barricades. A sign at the entrance to the country warns, "You are now leaving the USA." And then there are armed border guards, not technically ICE agents, but close enough, who question everyone seeking entry. Countries have borders, and the founders of CHAZ understood that. They don't want the place flooded with illegals. And by illegals, we mean the citizens of Seattle.
We have been hearing from community members that they have been subjected to barricades set up by the protesters, with some armed individuals running them as checkpoints into the neighborhood.
Well, that's pretty smart. You can't let just anyone into your country. They want to make this work for the sake of their people. and they don't have much to work with. What exactly is the economy of CHAZ? It's tough. With limited natural resources and a population with virtually no skills of any kind, apart from spray painting the F word on public buildings, they lead the world in that, the people of CHAZ don't have a lot of options for economic development. So they've gone with extortion through violence. Again, just like the conquistadors. It's a time-tested formula, and it's lucrative.
We have heard anecdotally reports of citizens and businesses being asked to pay a fee to operate within this area. This is the crime of extortion.
Well, like the nation it broke from, its mother nation, the United States, the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone is what political philosophers call a proposition nation. It's a country based on an idea rather than particular people. The founding idea in CHAZ, its Magna Carta, its Constitution, its raison d'etre, is that cops are bad. Very, very bad. The police are bad and should be abolished. So not surprisingly, CHAZ has banned police from its territory. The surrounding city of Seattle seems okay with that decision. I mean, does the government of Italy dictate local policies within the Vatican City? No, of course not. It's autonomous. Same thing here. What's amazing, though, is that the leaders of CHAZ would like to dictate policies in the city of Seattle. And so they're demanding that Seattle get rid of its police force and close all jails and prisons. At this point, CHAZ has not yet been admitted to the UN. Presumably there's an email headed there now. But as the Seattle police chief Carmen Best explained, the country already has recognition from the Seattle city government.
You should know, leaving the precinct was not my decision. Ultimately, the city had other plans for the building and relented to severe public pressure.
Pretty powerful police chief, pretty formidable law enforcement leader. I'm sure the people of Seattle feel well protected.
Do you still have faith in Chief Best? And Chief Best, do you still have faith in the mayor?
Yes, I have faith in the mayor. I'm standing here, right next to her, giving the briefing. You know.
I have confidence in the chief, and we've been asked in other forums, are you going to resign? Is the chief going to resign? The answer is no and no. My understanding is that there have been some occasions of some property damage, vandalism, a fight, but there's not been any serious incidents that have been documented.
So, Chief, you stood here on Friday and you said it was going to be your decision and your decision alone to use tear gas. Tear gas was deployed on Sunday.
Yep.
You released a video today to say that it was not your decision to close the East Precinct. So who is making tactical decisions right now for the Seattle Police Department?
So a couple of things, Chris. Those are two very different incidents. So for the tear gas, it was my decision. I think I prefaced that, and I made it very clear that we did not want to use any of the pepper spray, flashbangs, blast balls, or tear gas, and we suspended the use for 30 days unless there was a life safety situation. And that was the exemption. I was keeping abreast of what was happening in the precinct. They had a shooting earlier in the day. At some point, it got unruly. There was a man with a gun in the crowd. The officers felt like it was a life safety situation based on what was occurring, and I concurred. And I own that decision. I made that decision, and I will own any decision that I think is in the best interest of everyone's public safety.
So command staff made that decision to close the precinct?
We're looking into all of it, Chris, to see where it came from.
So the Capitol Hill area is, in fact, some of my family's up there right now. I think it has been described by the president and others as what it is not. It is not a armed Antifa militia no-go zone.
So CHAZ is a nation without leaders. It's a flat system. It's anarchy. How long can that continue? Probably not very long. Anarchy isn't built to last. In the end, the strong always dominate the weak. And in fact, it's already happening. It took barely a day for the nation of CHAZ to get its first warlord. And it was quite a promotion for him. Just a week ago, CHAZ Simone was an up-and-coming rapper. He was also a superhost for Airbnb. Now, he's a monarch. In videos taken within CHAZ, Simone is seen patrolling the area with his allies. They have guns. They're declaring, "We're the police now." In one clip, the monarch's men assault a citizen of CHAZ for spray painting graffiti inside the zone. Just like the mafia, CHAZ doesn't put up with nonsense like that in their own neighborhood. So that's what's happening in Seattle tonight. Not a big deal. A brand new nation within our own borders. Yes, the last time that happened, it did kick off a civil war that killed hundreds of thousands of Americans and lasted for years. But it's not a huge deal, and that may be why Democrats in Congress seem completely unaware that it's happening. Nancy Pelosi has said nothing about it, neither has Adam Schiff, and you'd think they kind of have their finger on the pulse of the nation. The mayor of Seattle knows about it, obviously. It's happening downtown, but doesn't seem bothered in the slightest. In fact, in the last few days, the mayor of Seattle, Jenny Durkan, has tweeted in honor of a deceased gay icon in the city. She's bragged about building new housing for the homeless. Until tonight, she didn't even acknowledge the existence of CHAZ. Again, a nation built in her downtown. The president noticed, though, last night he tweeted this: "Take back your city now. If you don't do it, I will. This is not a game. These ugly anarchists must be stopped immediately. Move fast." The mayor of Seattle replied this way, simply, "Make us all safe. Go back to your bunker." Ooh, a clever social media wordsmith. There are questions, though, unresolved. For example, what will happen to the American citizens who may have been shopping downtown in Seattle and are now stuck behind the border of CHAZ? Can we repatriate them? Are they now prisoners of war? These are questions of international diplomacy at this stage, but the mayor has not addressed them. She did say tonight that CHAZ is really like a block party, and she said she might grant some of their demands. Presumably a bilateral treaty is imminent. We'll be bringing you that news when it happens. The media haven't paid a lot of attention to CHAZ either. They're excited by anything that's new, but not in this new country. It's kind of weird because just a month ago, they were very against demonstrators. The anti-lockdown demonstrators in Michigan, for example, were dangerous zealots.
Really just an ugly, dangerous scene at the state capitol in Michigan.
Black people's right to protest is secondary to white people's right to be an armed protest with long guns.
Bunch of guys camoed up, a bunch of guys with long guns.
These potentially dangerous protests against stay-at-home orders?
Tiny minority with guns marched into the state capitol in Michigan today to lobby in their raucous way.
That when it's white people with guns and they're out and they're angry and their faces with cops.
Didn't see any of that.
Everybody's civil.
These folk ended up in the state capitol, Craig, with automatic weapons, and they were treated with kid gloves.
We said at the top of the show we're going to try to stay amused. Night after night we play those clips, and every night it's just, it makes you red in the face. How can people that stupid have TV shows? And that dishonest. But tonight, let's acknowledge it is amusing. Because here's the standard. If you protest lockdowns in Michigan with guns, but don't commit any violence at all, it's a threat to the nation. But if you commit beatings and loot and burn down buildings, you are, quote, mostly peaceful. If you create an armed, independent nation in downtown Seattle, it's amazing. Good call. The New York Times is on your side. And in fact, just today, the New York Times published a piece that described the nation of CHAZ as, quote, a homeland for racial justice. So we have homelands now in the middle of our country. The nation of CHAZ is, we're again quoting the New York Times here, quote, an experiment in life without the police. Part street festival, part commune. It has free food, and that's what it takes to make everything right. Just get rid of the police. By the way, how many of the people writing this stuff would go spend a week in CHAZ with their families? Or in Chad, for that matter? Zero.
Are you looking for the perfect summer getaway? A place where you can experience total freedom? A place for the family? Somewhere to catch a breath with your lover? Yeah! CHAZ. The Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone is the place for you. Located in downtown Seattle, CHAZ is the utopian vision you've always dreamt about. Culture, style, CHAZ has it all.
Am I wrong?
We got this, girl. Watch him. If you touch him, I touch you.
Enjoy live music from your favorite anti-capitalist bands. Fine soy cuisine unlike no other. Enjoy sushi while reading Marx and Engels. Smash the patriarchy with third-wave feminist cookie sandwiches. Relax and rejuvenate with our 5-star luxurious hotels. Or spend quality time with the family in our Bigelow folding tents.
Let's go!
Hey, what do you do?
What are you doing?
Kindle your spirit with documentaries on intersectionality and white privilege. Visit our library where we disingenuously pick books for you. Remember, if danger finds you, no need to call the cops. We got rid of them a long time ago. CHAZ has its own guards patrolling the area. Our citizens have set up a border system to keep illegals out.
From where I'm standing, there are barricades, there are people keeping watch and making sure everyone is safe. It's really a special place, and there's people want to do good here.
Book a trip to CHAZ now, and you just might meet our dear leader, Raz Simone. He is so peaceful.
What the f you talking about? Don't be talking no threats around here, man. Don't be saying no threats. I'll blow your brains out. Don't do that.
Romance, no privacy. Drugs. Watch the world burn as hipsters eat marshmallows. There's no escape from CHAZ. CHAZ. Satan, the devil hath risen. So what do you say? Book your trip now and join us in this once-in-a-lifetime adventure. Because the best way to fight racism is to ransack a neighborhood and turn it into a cyberpunk dystopian nightmare.
But that didn't slow ABC down. It described CHAZ as, quote, festive. Basically like free to bet, except in this case the media actually support it because China's on board too. We'd love to explore this question more. The press and the Democratic Party have repeatedly condemned protesters who carry weapons simply to make a point, who have no intention of using them and don't use them. And of course, last winter we had an entire impeachment charade based on the idea that nobody is above the law.
No one is above the law.
Nobody is above the law.
No one is above the law.
No one is above the law.
No one's above the law.
No one is above the law.
That no person is above the law.
Nobody should be above the law.
Nobody should be above the law.
No one is above the law.
Got that, America? Stop exercising your rights, the ones you thought were the law, and shut up, because no one is above the law. Except for Democratic voters, obviously. They're not simply above the law. In fact, they get to make their own laws. In fact, they can make their own countries if they want. It's all totally cool, just as long as they vote in November.
I like his sort of patronising tone, don't you? It's really interesting, taking a piss. I like these right-wing commentators that emerge out of America. But what do they tell us? Like, you know, like, and the way that they vary. What does it mean? Like Bill O'Reilly to, like, you know, Rush Limbaugh, this guy now. You know, like, I don't know why. I find them interesting.
City Hall!
I'm gonna take them.
It's not a video,
Stop.
dude.
Stop.
Okay,
Stop.
I'm heading out. I'm heading out.
You're gonna stop.
No, it's a ow. Help!
What do you mean help, bro? Who's gonna help?
It's in this moment, captured on video. Sean Whiting says he experienced fear he hadn't felt before at CHOP. For several weeks, the 32-year-old downtown gamer has been live streaming the CHOP protest. But yesterday, he says, while he was streaming in an area with tents in Cal Anderson Park, a man comes up to him and tells him not to film.
You see these signs?
Right. I'm not getting people, though. Like, what's the problem with the tents?
This is where I live.
Right, but
These are our houses.
It's a tent.
Can I come to your house and take photos of your house?
No, but my house isn't a public park.
This is not a public park anymore. This is CHOP zone, you know that.
The confrontation continues.
I'm telling you this and you respect what I'm saying.
Yeah, dude, I'm
For your own safety.
Sean says when he tried to leave,
He had a good hold of me from behind and wasn't letting me leave.
Sean says he was forced to delete the video.
I've seen people with weapons. I don't know if he was gonna, put a knife in me or put a gun to my back. I had no idea what was gonna happen.
I showed one of the protest leaders, Maurice Cola, the video. He's denouncing it.
That's not beneficial, and trying to assault people who are just trying to document is not okay. This is still a public place, and we're not going to violate anyone for doing and utilizing their rights properly.
Take back if you're not part of security now!
Listen, don't rob me. I'm 19, bro. Please. You robbed us. Bro, let's get back here. You robbed us. All right, I will. He said he will. The military one?
He said if you've been getting your news from right-wing media, you probably think armed militant Antifa activists have seized a section of Seattle, but the mayor's office tells me city officials have not interacted with armed Antifa militants at this site. Well, this video is what you shot from inside this zone last night.
I didn't take
Because he probably threw it. Who knows?
That sounds like a joke. Now, it doesn't exactly seem like it's all peace and love there. What were we seeing in that video, Julio?
What I could say is when President Trump calls CNN fake news, there's a reason why that insult sticks. Basically, what was happening there was a young man that was surrounded by the crowd. He was accused of stealing, from what I could gather, he was accused of stealing a phone from another protester. And so they said that he was a thief and he was trying to get away. And they were asking him, well, if you're innocent, why are you running away from us? And the man was clearly terrified. And there, at one point, there was a guy with a baseball bat, and he shoved the baseball bat in the guy's face. And he said, "I'm gonna beat you up." Fortunately for that young man, he was able to get away from the crowd, and it was then discovered that he didn't actually steal the phone. The phone was discovered at another spot. So
just tell us, for I think curious people outside certainly of the city, they want to know what it is. How do you define it?
The autonomous zone, as it's been called by the protest movement, is an incredible area of peace and friendship and dignity, and to take the movement forward. So it is full of hundreds of ordinary people, young people, children, families, and this is a movement obviously led by Black and Brown community members, but it is welcoming to people from all over the city and the region.
If you want to be safe, head to the precinct. Go to the precinct. Go to the precinct. Last warning. Go to the precinct. If you want to be safe, go to the precinct. These lobbies are in there and let them know that. We have active shooters out. You hear that? Go! Go ahead.
There is a lot of shooting going on right now. There's a car, a white SUV driving around the perimeter of CHAZ, just popping off shots. So far, as far as I know, nobody's been wounded or shot. Are there any wounded?
Yeah, we do have that. Just.
Where are they?
Yep. Yeah.
Wow.
Tell each other in front. I don't have a lighter. Somebody took my lighter earlier.
Goodness gracious. So they tried to come through the barricade. Clearly they were met with force, and then what, guys tried to give them life-saving measures?
Yes.
There's hella bullet holes. Look at this. There's two in the front. There's one right here.
There's two.
You don't see no bullet holes. No. I'm not trying to be funny, but shit, there goes. That's right there, and I don't know the circumstance. Well, we're trying to learn the circumstances around this, but damn, this wasn't really how we was trying to see tonight. And I mean, we talked about earlier, for people to watch this stream, we talked about, man, everything trying to wind down peacefully, but
that's better. I'm fucking keeping covered up. It's fucking getting too much liquor in the fucking system right now, I think. They partied way too hard. It's like 2 o'clock in the morning. And now emotions are running high. I mean, there's fucking people scattering now. I don't know what's going on. What's happening? Dude, there's fucking guns.
I do see some, oh, shit.
So it became very lawless. As you pointed out, we had 2 murders, a 19-year-old and a 16-year-old murdered in the area.
A 16-year-old is dead.
A 14-year-old is critically injured. And good evening, I'm Dave Wagner.
And I'm Monique Minglovin. Well, tonight the father of another teenager shot and killed there last week says CHOP must go. Cairo 7's Deborah Horn is live right now on Capitol Hill. And Deborah, things got pretty tense there when the victim's father spoke out.
Tense indeed, Monique, and that is because he is saying things the people at CHOP do not want to hear. But now 2 teenagers, both of them black, have been killed here, at least 3 others wounded.
So I ain't been asleep. You see my eyes, I've been crying. I'm trying not to cry on TV, you know.
Horace Lorenzo Anderson stood in the embrace of Andre Taylor, a leader in the anti-police violence movement, here to shine a light on the murder of his 19-year-old son and namesake, shot and killed inside the CHOP last weekend. He says this Capitol Hill organized protest zone should go.
This doesn't look like a protest to me no more. That looks like they just took over and said we can take over whenever we want to.
At about 3 o'clock this Monday morning, shots were fired at a Jeep Cherokee that eyewitnesses say tried to drive through the CHOP. Those here say the occupants were shooting at them, so someone inside CHOP fired back.
We need to defend ourselves. We need to retaliate. We need to exercise our Second Amendment right.
They defended their reaction, killing a 16-year-old male, badly injuring a 14-year-old.
We were panicking. Everyone was woken up early in the morning. We did take cover, and we defended ourselves.
But Seattle Police Chief Carmen Best decried the violence.
I'm not going to let the detractors and the naysayers and the agitators, be the ones that are the voice here. There are people who live here. There are multiple people who are being injured and hurt, and we need to do something about it. It is absolutely irresponsible for this to continue.
Anderson thinks the National Guard should be asked to return.
They should deploy them here and say, man, hey, it's time to go. It's time to move on and break this up.
Well, they say that their goal is to have justice and that they, as black...
Justice is not happening here. Violence is happening here.
Right.
Of course, when Andre Taylor said that violence is happening here, he was met with angry resistance. Now, the mayor issued a statement late today saying that city workers have been offering services to the people there and reminding them that they are to leave, but they are defiant. They say they won't go until their demands are met, principal among them, the defunding of Seattle police.
I think it's an amazing social experience. What I think is going on is that people are uniting. Seattle is different than any other city I've ever been to. People are uniting on a point that is telling everyone that people can unite and not be divided by something.
We're not receding from the United States. We're not claiming to be separate. What we are we're holding an area just to send a message, and people are listening.
From time to time, we have factions, but right now this place is not occupied by any organization right now. This place is just the people.
But you are definitely trying to show an example of something different.
Right. That's our biggest thing.
We're autonomous in the fact that we aren't being governed by the police.
What we're trying to show people is that we can actually police ourselves. Because with the SPD, all the NYP, all the police departments, there's a little bit too much brutality coming on when they come in to intervene and police our situations.
We're going to take you into the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone and go through the front entry gate. They've said that, they've got this cordoned off and you've got to have an entry, but I don't think you do. I think it's just keeping the bad elements out. Thank you. So they're monitoring who comes in and who is able to come in and out to a degree. You can see people with radios on, like behind me, the guy with the radio, that sort of thing. They're probably communicating in case something bad happens in here, of which you're having all kinds of people talk from different indigenous groups and Black Lives Matter.
What we are doing with the Democratic Socialists of America is showing up and showing solidarity with the Black and POC-led organizations that have been doing abolition work for a really long time. That really put pressure on elected officials to respond to what the people are requesting. It's really people reclaiming public space. Where, a space where they can feel safe, where they can be in community and don't have to deal with the threat of state violence.
A lot of people don't trust the police anymore, especially after our weeks of conflict. So we've kind of taken it upon ourselves to make sure things aren't getting too violent or too crazy.
They started in the front, right? And they were like Trump supporters or whatever. Which, hey, look, I don't agree with anything they had to say at all. I don't like them that much, but hey, life is life. And as Americans, like, you're allowed to have an opinion. The problem is that their opinion is going to incite rioting.
We have been seeing some far-right movement. Everyone's welcome as long as they're welcome with us. We are keeping an eye on the situation. They have open carry guns on them.
Everyone surrounds them. We're going to maul them, right? Type shit. Someone trying to attack them from the back. And that's when I was like, forget that. I'm going to get in front of them. And I got in the middle of everybody. I don't know no one. And I just said, like, let them be the idiots they came in here being, and let them walk out the idiots. You give them attention, that's the problem. I'm not a leader. You know what I'm saying here? I'm just a guy that shares a common idea with everybody else.
We still have law and order.
If the people can be this peaceful with each other, imagine if it was organized.
Opportunity for us to come together as a community and provide a safe space for folks to stay the night or stay the day. I think the garden is a perfect example of that. I mean, 4 days ago it was like these 3 plots and they were just kind of like mounds of dirt on the ground. And now it's grown into a whole community operation.
Just somebody find a space. Here, and then one all around over the top.
People are just, they're living and, occupying the space for as long as they can sustain the infrastructure. And you see the extent of the gardening that they've been doing.
So the interesting thing has been to watch as these Chazanistas have tried to figure out how they're going to feed themselves. If they're in it for the long haul, they're going to need to be able to create a lot of food. They're just a 6-block nation. They don't have a lot of living space to grow food, to raise livestock. They're going to have to figure out how to do this pretty quickly. So it's been really interesting watching how they have set up their community gardens. This on the left is from the first garden that they put out. It doesn't take much to realize that these people are going to starve to death if this is the food they plan to survive off of. It's a complete and utter mess. You look at this, they're planting directly on top of cardboard. Now there are strategies out there to use cardboard to kill grass, but typically you don't do it like this. You kind of dig down deep, or you build a raised garden and you use the cardboard at the bottom layer to kill off any grass or weeds, not to just basically throw a couple of scoops of dirt on top of a piece of cardboard and call it a day. These people are going to starve to death. These people are absolutely going to starve to death. If this is the best they have to offer, if this is their best shot at creating food for their new republic, or actually I don't even know what they're going to be. I don't know if they're going to be a republic or not. Maybe they're going to be a Democratic People's Republic for all we know. And this is a sign that we saw from their garden. This garden is for Black and Indigenous folks and their plant allies. Now, I don't know if we're being trolled here, but the idea that there are such things as plant allies in the Black and Indigenous fight, this has to be a troll. And yet, it's up there. It stayed up. No one's taken it down. So even if it is a troll, the people there agree with it. This is them trying to plan out their garden in the CHAZ. And look at that guy on the top left. That's the look of complete despair, realizing that you have to feed a couple hundred to a couple thousand people for a long time. And I want to show this picture because this picture is possibly the funniest part. Look at the bottom right. Look at that plant. This plant was just planted that very day. It is already dying.
Just somebody find a space. How to grab this. And then
Just to be clear, this is the same garden that we saw in this picture. As you can see, it's the same building in the background graffitied. This person spent all day planting his crops only for these idiots high on something to come around and just destroy it.
Today I bring you another tale from the hero known as 4chan. He went on his computer, as he normally does, to look at the news. His battle station, he dug right in. And that's when he heard about CHAZ, the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone that had been taken over by Antifa and Black Lives Matter.
Everything in the autonomous zone is free right now. It's free right now.
And in that moment, the hacker known as 4chan had a brilliant idea. He knew just what he needed to do to epically troll the autonomous zone. Introducing Operation Homeless. Hello everyone.
Okay, so the goal is to flood CHAZ with homeless people, obnoxious, non-politicized schizophrenics who will fuck their shit up and eat all their food, get drunk and high, piss and shit wherever they want, please, etc. This would put the CHAZ in a position of having to either enforce borders and develop an immigration policy. This naturally implies a hierarchy and other fun stuff that Antifa will surely appreciate, or simply collapsing out of the weight of uncontrolled immigration and lack of border controls. Guys, we need to send all of the homeless to CHAZ.
The homeless people we invited took away all the food at the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone. Wow, I never could have seen that coming. We need more food to keep the area operational. Please, if possible, bring vegan meat substitutes, fruits, oats, soy products, etc. Anything to help us eat.
While the police chief has made it clear she wants officers back in the precinct, the mayor's office now acknowledges the negotiations involve buildings outside of the CHOP, saying there have been some calls for the precinct, to be turned into a community center. What we hear from the community more often is the need to transfer other properties back to the Black community, like Fire Station 6 and the Central Area Senior Center.
We kind of played politics with the issues of racism and segregation, all of those things. And now people are now seeing what a lot of people have talked about for many years.
Organizers say racism is back in the spotlight and they want to channel that energy.
We're trying to keep them engaged in order to help build the awareness of what needs to happen for us to truly be free in this country.
In Seattle, Judkins Park will provide the backdrop to talk about how the Juneteenth anniversary, marking the end of slavery, can be a launching point to upend institutionalized racism and remake America.
And we don't want to lose that enthusiasm. We want to be able to funnel that into real change. And the only way we can do that is what the next steps are.
The youth, that we do have a voice and we want to be heard because we are the future of the world. And we really need to start taking it seriously.
Welcome to Seattle's autonomous zone. This is what happens when protesters take over an entire city block, including a police station. Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone. It's about 3 or 4 streets, just famous for being ground zero for protests in Seattle. I've been covering protests here for a decade now. This is about where they all start and about where they all end at Cal Anderson Park. It's a very, very progressive, liberal neighborhood in this country. The energy goes to about a level 11. Police intervene, but in the late hours and in the morning hours, like it is here right now, you can actually talk to people and you can get a feel for how they really feel, and everyone's a lot calmer.
Just dropped by to see what they needed, and now I work here.
Oh, really? Yeah. How long have you worked here? What's your...
Maybe an hour.
Okay.
I see a lot of people that likely live in the neighborhood walking their dogs, and people coming to take pictures because they're curious.
Thank you so much.
And then I've had a lot of people come up to me because clearly I work here now. And there is a sign here that shows what supplies they want.
This, what you see here, was within 24 hours. This is called the No Cop Co-op. Literally, I started because I forgot my sign up there. After running for my life, and I came back the next day because I wanted to get it, and I saw this food because people had abandoned it. You've seen people donate. That was already happening, and I started with 1 bag. I asked on Twitter for a tent. 10 minutes later, someone's like, I have one. We got cases upon cases of milk yesterday. The local businesses are bringing pints of ice cream. As a joke, because we didn't need anything, we asked for a basketball hoop, and that was delivered within a few hours.
Well, do you work? Do you have a job? Are you furloughed? Or you...
No, I have a job, but I can work remotely.
I'm a furloughed chef, just trying to help out.
That's more of like the support mechanism, the donations tent. So I'm gonna go check out and see what the rest of the protest is up to.
What's your deal? Why are you down here?
Keeping a border or a wall between, cops, whoever wants to hurt these people, period.
Are people trying to hurt them?
Not as far as I've been here. I've only been standing out here for about 12 hours, but...
Do you live here?
I live all around here. I don't have a home, so...
What's your job?
My job is to, nothing. No, I don't have a job at the moment. I actually quit my job to come and protest.
This is Fox, and we're not answering questions.
Oh, right, okay, okay, cool.
Who are you? What brings you here?
So I am here under a pseudonym. I'll leave it at that. That makes it irrelevant. And my purpose here is to make sure that everybody who's in there is safe and protected because we are a non-violent movement.
More people know how to use firearms.
We just got told there's another group they're meeting with there, and then they'll be moving in a few minutes, so be ready.
Somebody over there, age 18, know how to use a gun? Take the clip out and put it back in.
Yo, no one's gonna fucking ask me walking in here then.
Nah, just come right back in.
Hell no, bruh.
Whether that's from violent police action or from Proud Boy incursion, things like that.
How does this end?
How does this end? That's a good question.
Not a terrorist organization. We are just a loving group of family.
You're choking me!
But the fact that we can stay out here and we can take care of our people, that's way better. We got food out here, we got drinks, coffee, anything you need. We are self-sustaining.
No, that's fine. That's fine. No, that's not fine. Yeah, take that shit. Point them out. Point them out. Point them out. Point them out. Yellow beanie. Yellow beanie. Yellow beanie. Right there. We don't allow for that shit in our house. We took an oath, Seattle.
You want to get out?
Do you want to?
Yeah, please, me.
You alright?
You alright?
Yeah,
He stole your camera?
Yeah.
Where is it? Which guy? Yo, who took the camera? Who took the camera? Who stole that man's camera? What happened? Who stole that man's camera?
Not anyone right here. Why are you defending white supremacy? Why are you here?
I'm not kidding.
No.
How you doing, proud lady?
Who stole your camera? Who stole the
No
camera?
one stole my camera.
Why do you attack people? Why do you attack innocent people? Why are you attacking innocent people?
And don't fly the flag. No, that's fine. That's fine. No, that's not fine. Yeah, take that shit. Leave it the fuck alone, bro.
You now live in a world where a chunk of Seattle is in control of a warlord. And while that seems bad, at least we might be able to cancel culture the Dukes of Hazzard to death. Now, it seems like it would make more sense to keep the 1980s orange car show and cancel the autonomous zone, but maybe that's just me. Besides, with the exception of the flag on the top of the car, the Dukes of Hazzard are basically what Black Lives Matter and Antifa wish they were. They are always fighting against corrupt police and government officials. They rejected the use of guns. That's why they always use bows and arrows. They even grew their own food and would barter with Cooter for repairs and upgrades to their car. The Duke boys could move right into CHAZ and not miss a beat. Plus, their car was, of course, called the General Lee, who wanted races separated and was a Democrat, just like every resident of CHAZ. CHAZ. Why is it so fascinating? Well, how could it not be? I mean, honestly, you're basically taking the unshouted, bearded guy, like rocking back and forth drunkenly in front of a Starbucks, complaining about the corporatism, and then you're giving him a country. Of course it's fascinating. It's like a reality show with absolutely no likable characters.
Race traitor! Race traitor! Race traitor! Race traitor! And that right there is the DOA.
What's going on, man? Why are you naked?
Because I got 2 kids, I need to get naked too.
What's your message?
Peter was. It's an earthquake. I'm gone. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord.
Are you sick of living in capitalist America? Sick of your freedoms and rights and security and due process? Well, come on down to CHAZ. Look at all the wonderful things that communism has to offer. Feel safe in CHAZ with strong border security and armed border guards. Live like a good communist in CHAZ housing just like this. You can live in slums. No need to have ambulances in utopian CHAZ. Turn them into housing. No need to buy clothes. Clothes are free in communist CHAZ. Be a good environmentalist by throwing your trash everywhere and expecting capitalist America to pick it up. Artists in CHAZ are free to create art anywhere they want, even on playgrounds for children and historic buildings. You can even create art on bathrooms that capitalist America has donated to CHAZ. However, I wouldn't recommend using these facilities. Instead, just poop in the street. In CHAZ, if you need manure, you can just find it in the street. Feel free to use any drugs you want, anywhere you want. In CHAZ, you can plant gardens and then segregate who can garden in them by their race. That's progress. Make sure you deface minority-owned businesses. Progress! Make sure you threaten to kill cops and then threaten to kill everyone who doesn't agree with you. You better desecrate the American flag. All good communists do it. And guess what? In CHAZ, there's no police. So CHAZ is completely peaceful. No violence ever in CHAZ. Peace and love forever. The best part, in communist CHAZ, you can still use capitalism. It's only 6 dirty capitalist American pig dollars for a hot dog. Or you can just eat food right off the ground. So come on down to CHAZ and find the future leftists want. Yay, communism!
Well, hi, Chris. This is the Seattle police station that has essentially been taken over by protesters, and you can see it's been totally defaced. Look where it used to say the Seattle Police Department, and now it says the Seattle People Department, and all the windows are boarded up because the officers who work in this station essentially abandoned ship. Let me explain how this all came about, Chris. You had several days of violent clashes between police and protesters in front of this station, and there was tear gas deployed. It was a terrible situation. And officers within the department made the calculated decision that they wanted to try to de-escalate things. So they decided to pack up and leave. And when that happened, you had a void, and protesters filled that void, and that's what you've had since Monday. Now, despite the fact that this all began violently, right now, it's entirely peaceful. In fact, you can see these protesters behind me. And in fact, let's pan the camera around, Chris, because it really has the feel of a street festival. They're serving food down there. They're giving out free food. There's medical tents. People are camping out. They have movies at night. There's live music. So that's what the situation is like now. But right now, Chris, there appears to be no strategy in place on the part of the city to take back this police department. We don't know how long this is going to go for, but they seem to be content at the moment just to let them have the run of the place.
Peter, as you just said, you've been through that neighborhood before in Capitol Hill, this particular neighborhood where this 6-block radius has become this so-called autonomous zone, is very much of has its own life within itself. And over these last nights, you've had thousands of folks walk through. When you're going through, it's more like a pedestrian street festival of sorts. You have folks, these restaurants are open, there's couches in the middle of the road, there's gardening taking place. Now you've seen essentially almost like a street festival type atmosphere.
No,
with a very
it is not a street festival.
With a very intentional purpose.
It is not a street festival. It is not a street festival. Do not say that.
Please,
shame on you for saying that. Learn right now. It is not a street festival.
This is your Common or Garden surgical mask. So you put it over your face. You pinch the wire at the very, very top so it fits snugly to your nose, and you make sure it's coming underneath your chin. Don't touch your face when you've got your mask on. Maybe try and pinch the nose again, but as soon as you touch your mask, you're at risk of contaminating your hands and then contaminating yourself.
Shame on you for saying that. Learn right now. It is not a street festival.
Do you know our voices sound like
it is
from
not.
tear gas that police attacked us with?
You have to understand some traumatizing things happened here. All of us are suffering from PTSD in our own country.
When we leave after all this, we do not want all this graffiti out here. We're going to be out here fixing the graffiti. We're raising funds to change it. We are not here to make any type of footprint. We do not want to leave a footprint.
So who's doing the graffiti?
There's no telling. Who's going to clean it? We are.
Are you from Seattle?
Yeah.
It seems to be strange to have such a beautiful place just sort of taken over and the police kicked out. It's odd.
Yep, sure does. Yep, it ain't right.
What do people in Seattle think about this?
It ain't right. Bunch of thugs.
Yeah.
Bunch of thugs. Words going around. People are upset. They can't come down here and do their business.
Right. Is that like you? Have you been affected by this?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, sure have. Everybody is.
Do you find it ironic that the first thing that they did, that these communists did, was set up a large wall and then arm it with people?
Yep. I find the cops are wrong for leaving.
Yeah.
Yep. This is America, dude. This ain't right.
Describe CHAZ in one word.
Chaos. You'll die out here, bro. You want to die out here?
A lot of the business owners are enraged, but they actually won't do interviews or talk to us because they said the repercussions. They're afraid they're going to get targeted, which they will.
So they take a look at me, and the closest thing would be racially profile me. And then because of that, I've had people come up to me and ask me for my ID, ask me to prove who I am, have told me that I can't go into a place or move. Of course, these are people that haven't been voted into power, have just seized power in that area and decided that, well, quite frankly, just violate whatever civil rights they feel like I shouldn't deserve at that time. Again, it's people controlling other people because they think they know better.
Fascinating stuff here from the CHAZ America border. Turns out when you start your own country, what you need is really strong borders, a physical barrier, guys to guard it, which you can see right there behind me, and then roving bands of armed men to make sure that justice is instilled in your society. Really special. They totally solved all of the problems here inside of America.
Protesters on Seattle's Capitol Hill are fighting for change from the police and city, but residents nearby say they're being harmed in the process, some even describing themselves as hostages.
Their lives, no doubt, have been turned upside down, and they're just hoping for some normalcy as soon as possible.
So these complaints coming from the residents themselves, from tear gas pouring into their apartment buildings at the beginning of this to now loud music throughout the night, they make it clear that if the CHOP is going to coexist with the people who already live in this neighborhood, well, then some changes need to be made. To the rest of the world, this area is the CHOP or CHAZ.
We're not even here most of the time, and it's terrible to live here right now. It's just not conducive.
To Surjan, it's his backyard. He's only comfortable using his first name. He lives in one of the apartment buildings bordering Cal Anderson Park, and here's video he shot of what his block looks like now.
What you want from a home is a stress-free environment. You want to be able to sleep well. You want to feel comfortable. We just don't feel comfortable right now.
So Surjan and his fiancée are leaving. They'll stay with family for the next week. Their complaints aren't unique. We've received emails from many that say they have real concerns about living inside or near the Capitol Hill organized protest zone, an area that police have publicly said they won't respond to unless there's a significant threat to life. Noise complaints aren't very high on that list. What is your message to frustrated residents that have complaints about loud music, about being uncomfortable with being home, walking in and out at night? What do you say to them?
If that discomforts them, I can't imagine how they feel about black people being murdered by police.
700 Seattle adults responded to an exclusive King 5 poll that asked the question, have you ever had an interaction with a Seattle police officer? More than half said yes, and they answered a series of questions about their experience. 378 people responded to this. Was your most recent experience interacting with a Seattle police officer entirely positive, neutral, negative, or entirely negative? More than half said entirely positive or positive.
I think that the Seattle Police Department still knows it has a job to do.
They're going to focus on those positive numbers.
But Sims says the negative numbers can't be ignored. Poll results also show an overwhelming majority said they did not feel singled out for no reason by police, and most responded that they did not feel discriminated against.
I'm not kidding. I mean, this guy, he's following me. And it wouldn't be that big of a deal, but he has a 9mm gun on his hip with no ammunition, and at least that I can see.
That's what he said. It's Channel 5. Okay, have a good day.
Can I ask why you're following me?
To make sure you're not doing anything you don't need to be doing.
What would that be? What are the orders you got? Did they give you orders to stop the media?
No.
Do you hate the media? What am I not supposed? What do they tell you to stop? Have a nice day. It does make me a little uncomfortable. I will stop. I'm out. I don't take pictures of you. You stop following me. Deal.
Let's bring in the mayor of Seattle now, going toe-to-toe with the president today, but let's deal with her own problems at home in her backyard first. Jenny Durkin, welcome back, Ms. Mayor. It's good to have you.
Good to see you, Chris. Glad you're back and healthy.
Thank you. Thank you for the good word. So I don't have to tell you about the situation on the ground in your city, but in terms of how it looks to the rest of the country and the president teeing it up as basically ineptitude, the inability to control your own streets. Is that fair criticism?
So I know it will shock you that the president is perhaps not giving an accurate or truthful picture. We've got 4 blocks in Seattle that you just saw pictures of that is more like a block party atmosphere. It's not an armed takeover. It's not a military junta. We will make sure that we can restore this, but we have block parties and the like in this part of Seattle all the time. It's known for that. So I think the president, number one, there is no threat right now to the public. And we're taking that very seriously. We're meeting with businesses and residents. But what the president threatened is illegal and unconstitutional. And the fact that he can think he can just tweet that and not have ramifications is just wrong.
The counter will be block parties don't take over a municipal building, let alone a police station, and destroy it, basically thumbing their nose at any sense of civic control. Do you believe that you have control of your city and that you would be able to clear those streets? Because you haven't.
We do, and the chief of police was in that precinct today with her command staff looking and assessing on operational plans. But we saw that it was a point of conflict night after night between the police department and protesters. And we wanted to de-escalate that. And what we decided was the best way to do that was reopen the streets. And that itself ended up with some ramifications for the precinct to remove anything that was valuable out of that building. But we will make sure that all of Seattle is safe. We take public safety seriously.
Especially business owners, business owners. I heard they're charging them to stay open, whatnot. Is that true? Do you know?
That is completely true. Yes, 100%.
Yeah, I think that's ridiculous. But
we call that extortion in this country.
Yeah.
But this is America, so that's CHAZ. So this country, America, that's called extortion and it's illegal. Over there, I have no idea what the rules are.
Oh yeah.
So what's it like at 2 o'clock in the morning?
It's like the purge. There's been assaults, rapes, all kinds of stuff, and everybody has said that they called PD, and PD says we are not servicing that area.
I want to update you all on the situation at the East Precinct. The decision to board up the precinct, our home, the first precinct I worked in, was something I have been holding off. You fought for days to protect it. I asked you to stand on that line, day in and day out, to be pelted with projectiles, to be screamed at, threatened, and in some cases hurt. Then to have a change of course nearly 2 weeks in, it seems like an insult to you and our community. Ultimately, the city had other plans for the building and relented to severe public pressure.
We need cultural change, and that happens by the standards that we set in our laws. The only reason why we have made police unwelcome here is because their presence has been largely antagonistic. While they aren't here, there's nothing but peace and humanity over there. And it is beautiful.
Inside CNN Center, we're just in the last 10 minutes. Demonstrators have started to come up and down this thoroughfare of Marietta and break out windows of CNN Center.
You have some people are laughing, some people are videotaping.
They just threw something on fire, Chris, a firecracker.
Yep.
Something's on fire!
but I'm talking about CHAZ, the area formerly known as CHAZ. So yeah, I know there's going to be a lot of boomers, like 50, 60-year-olds that don't understand what the kids are up to, but hopefully you engage in some open-mindedness, and you can listen to me talk a little bit here. So owners say police presence following chop sweep is hurting business. Remember what all the right-wingers that did not live in Seattle were saying over the last few weeks? Is like, oh, all the people, what about the businesses? Oh, what about the businesses? Well, I don't know if you've ever been to a protest. Chances are you've never left your house for any reason other than to go to your wage slave job. But I've been to multiple protests in multiple different cities. I can assure you, especially before coronavirus, I'm not entirely certain about now, but I can assure you, any businesses that were near protest zones got a fuck load of money. I remember every time I would go to a protest in Washington, D.C., like at Lafayette Park, down the street afterward, I would just walk down the street and get a Wawa sub because it's right there. And that's the thing. You are going to make a lot of money. But right-wingers kept saying, oh, what about the businesses? Ah, the businesses. The businesses. There's just the small business, the free market. Like, do you want to listen to the businesses? Because I've got some words here from the businesses. Some businesses say the police occupation in Capitol Hill following the sweep of the CHOP. Again, CHOP is the stupidest name. But business owners in the area known as the CHOP, say this police presence is making their jobs difficult. People are scared. They're worried. They fear for their safety. They fear for the safety of people out here, more so with the police presence than with the members of CHOP with protesters. Martinez is the manager of Bang on Pine Street, has created confusion and concern for customers and employees. Officers are allowing people past the barricade if they live, work, or have business in the area, but owners say the presence alone is enough to scare people away. If I ever saw cops in a place, I wouldn't go there, just because I don't want to be around cops. They're garbage, they're evil, they're disgusting, and if push comes to shove, if anything were to happen, I know my life is in danger being around them. I would just not bother. I remember one time trying to go to Wawa, I'm trying to get my sub. I'm raised in New Jersey here, so when they built Wawa in Washington, that was a big deal. Now I'm in North Carolina and I'm fucked again, but either way. But I remember one time I saw a fucking cop go in and I was like, I felt devastated. It's like, because I had the thought, and this is the first time I really thought about this. I was like, wow, am I really going to go in there after a cop? I don't want to be around cops. I was just like at a protest. I don't want to be around cops. That's how most people think. Most people do not like the cops. I understand if you're a boomer, MAGA, loser, Trump 2020, US, TDS. Like, I get it. You live in this bizarro, like, Western film kind of fan fiction, like, fantasy land where you think that people love the cops. But I can guarantee you, especially under the age of 35, we hate the cops. We don't just dislike the cops, but we despise the cops. This is something you need to understand. We're closed because the police reoccupied the streets, said Zach Perry. Perry is the owner of the Dumpling Czar. He says he has only had one order all day. Perry says the hardest part for him is the uncertainty behind the law enforcement presence.
We just got to get rid of the whole shit. Start up from
burn the whole shit down.
Yeah.
If there is no change, there might be a lot more destroying until there is.
Riot's the voice of the unheard.
But I think some destruction and looting kind of sends a message to people, and breaking their is justified.
In order to... I'm not going to. Dismantle the same nation that is deemed legitimate, we kind of have to destroy it.
We said, you know what, fuck the property, fuck the consumption, fuck capitalism.
I mean, white people own slaves, so them.
All we need is the love of one another and the communal aspect of one another and taking care of each other.
A super devout Christian guy came here. He was spouting about, God is glory. He hates homosexuals. He hates abortions. He was sitting there spreading, very divisive words. And he was allowed to do it. Nobody hit him. He didn't get tackled to the ground.
That Christian guy did get tackled. They had him on the ground choking him out.
While these sentiments were the majority opinion of most people in the CHAZ, was it reflective of the leadership of this Lilliputian utopia? The question was answered when we interviewed Jaden Grayson,
one of the leaders of this movement.
Every single day that I show up here, I'm not here to peacefully protest. I'm here to disrupt until my demands are met. You cannot rebuild until you break it all the way down. Respond to the demands of the people or prepare to be met with any means necessary. By any means necessary.
That's not just a slogan.
No, it's not a slogan. It's not even a warning. I'm letting people know what comes next. A response to violence is not violence itself.
The Republic of CHAZ published a very clear list of demands. Among them was the abolishment of the police.
The Seattle Police Department turns in their badges, we'll have made a move forward.
In other words, not defund the police, abolish.
Abolish the police state.
Included in the lengthy manifesto was the demand to abolish the justice system. So speaking of the criminal justice system, do you think that it's so inherently biased, so inherently racist, that the criminal justice system, the courts, all of that need to be taken away?
Absolutely. Without question.
And then what?
Again, you're asking a question that cannot be answered. The unraveling that happens to that system is also exactly what will fuel the black minds and the black bodies that will recreate a new world.
Should we abolish the prison system?
Yes, we should get rid of it as we know it today.
Get rid of it?
Yes. I don't understand why more journalists are not asking those questions. We run to black people the minute that they're killed, and we have been seeing them be killed for so long that the PTSD from that is unbelievable. You have people still bitching about 9/11. Unbelievable. One act of terror.
Do you feel like an American?
I am an African brought to America.
I'm actually one of the original members of the Seattle Black Panther Party.
Do you feel like the revolution that you started is on the right track?
I think it's taking a turn in the wrong direction, honestly. This precinct here is needed because there are a lot of people that need police assistance. Who are they going to call? But you know what? We didn't go around and smash them and burn them out and things like that. It just didn't happen. So I think
unlike
today, shutting down the streets and calling this some kind of autonomous zone is a bunch of bullshit.
Kane County prosecutors have filed first-degree murder charges against a man they say is responsible for killing 19-year-old Lorenzo Anderson outside of the so-called CHOP, or Capitol Hill Organized Protest Zone, in June.
Man, these are kids, man. They should have been stopped this a long time ago. It's starting to get, excuse me, but it's getting to the point, where, it's getting.
Gotcha. I'm so sorry.
That we're following right near the CHOP zone in Seattle. That's where another shooting happened just a short time ago. Let's check in now with Callie Greenberg.
What happened here is we're hearing that a man was taken to the hospital with a gunshot wound. Now, the significance of this location, John Street and 11th, this is where that victim was able to meet with first responders. Police tell us they cannot confirm whether or not the shooting happened inside of the protest area. However, this meeting spot here is just a block outside of the Capitol Hill Organized Protest Zone.
It's time for people to go home.
Now that is Mayor Jenny Durkin. She spoke at a presser yesterday saying they're hoping to deconstruct the CHOP area. She and Police Chief Carmen Bass, they want people to be able to protest peacefully during the day, but they say what's happening in the overnight hours, they really want people to go home at night. Now, during that same press event, what Chief Best said is within the protest zone, there have been shootings, a rape, assault, and several other things. She actually held up the police reports looking to show that she was not making things up. Now, police plan to return to the East Precinct in the near future. They didn't provide a timeline of what that will look like. Protesters were actually scheduled to meet with the city yesterday, but supposedly canceled last minute.
I don't trust the mayor. I don't trust the mayor at all. We're gonna make sure they don't take back the precinct.
What happens if the police come and try to move back in here?
Good luck.
Now, one thing we've heard from the Seattle Fire Department is that they have established contact points with medics, volunteer medics inside of the CHOP area. So if anything were to happen, they could meet outside of the protest zone safely. So that might be what we're seeing here. Again, this was a meeting point. Police say the shooting didn't happen here. They can't confirm whether or not it happened inside the protest area.
The negotiating still needs to keep continuing. I want to show you something. So this lane right here is supposed to be open, but you can see over there protesters have blocked it off with cars, and even on the other side some chairs, and they're actually guarding it, saying regardless of what the city says, they don't feel safe with the lane open.
I feel like it's another tactic to try to divide us up.
Just hours after 4,000-pound concrete barriers lined the CHOP zone, opening up one lane of traffic, some protesters have already blocked it off. Still Our Streets read one of the messages on the barriers.
The barriers are right now is literally in the middle of the area that we fought for. So is it helping us, or are you guys trying to push us out of the area?
Fire Chief Harold Scoggins says the barriers are meant to protect protesters in the CHOP zone from people who may want to drive through crowds.
You know, I had significant concerns over fire and life safety.
Plus, the barriers open up one lane of traffic around the zone so people who live there can get to their homes, businesses can operate, and emergency vehicles can respond.
This now hopefully brings the narrative back to the message and not focus on the space.
We went from a whole street to a half a street. Now it feels like we're sharing it with the same people we're trying to negotiate with.
Chief Scoggins has been to the zone every day. I asked him why he felt compelled to go beyond public safety concerns.
There's a lot of young people in there.